it up as we go, right? Why not?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is All Things Books and Publishing with myself, Yvonne Mason, and Mary Brotherton, and two wonderful, wonderful guests, Debra Gaskill and Gwendolyn Law. And we were just talking before the show. So much is going on with our lives and with this endeavor that we do. Mary did 3 lives this morning. We just published her 25th book. She's only been with us a year. Debra's been running all over the world like she's a world traveler. Gwendolyn, she's been running up and down the road in her camper. She owes me books. She's making excuses. I mean, this is what we do here.
It's when I get to it. No deadlines, remember?
Except within your case. So,
Unless you're her daughter by another mother. Got it.
there you go. See, so what we have done today, last week we brought Debra on and talked about her book and domestic violence in our environment. And this week was Gwendolyn's time to come on and talk about her new book, Domestic Violence, A Cycle Repeated. And she said, will Debra come back on with us? And Debra said, absolutely, I'm there. Just color me there. Because she had so much fun the first time, didn't realize 2 hours had gone by. And there we were. We said hello and goodbye. And she goes, what? But that's what happens with this show. We don't do a scripted show. We don't send out, oh, here are 10 questions. Please tell me how you will answer them. That's not how we roll here because it's not real. So before we get started with this crew of women, we have some book releases that have either just come out or are coming out. Our guest next week will be Andrea Dean Van Scoyoc, and we will be talking about her 2 new releases, The Gate Beyond, The Rise of a Young Warrior, Astrid's Story, which is her Viking story, and Midnight Tea in a Graveyard, which is short stories and prose, which is absolutely wonderful. We have just released, which goes live on the 20th, Mary's 25th book called Early Release. It is a satire on someone having to write a letter of recommendation to have someone early released by the parole board.
Oh.
And then, of course, Gwendolyn's book, Domestic Violence, A Cycle Repeated, is out there, has been out there for a minute. We will be releasing Michael T. Warden's book, Make the Hurt Go Away. And ladies and gentlemen, that book, if you are in an exclusive club, of which I am a member, and I don't recommend this club to anybody, it is not a club I want anybody to be in, is where we have lost a spouse. And we have to continue our journey without that spouse. And especially when that spouse has been a supporter, a sounding board, someone that encouraged us in our journey. And Mike lost his spouse, and they had been married, I think, 34 years. He fortunately found someone else that he had known in his past, and she had lost her spouse, and they wound up getting married. But the trials that one has to endure when one does that, because if you have children, those children sometimes say, well, you're replacing our mom, or you're replacing our dad. No, that's not the case. No one is being replaced. But just because we've lost that partner doesn't mean that we are not entitled, and I use that term very loosely, to be happy with someone else. It doesn't negate the fact that we love that former person, that we had a life with that former person, and they will always be a part of us. And in this club, we don't say we move on. We say we move forward. Because if we say we move on, it means that person never existed. So that book will be coming out. It is a very heartwarming, heartfelt book about how Mike dealt with grief, loss, and moving forward. So, with that being said, Deborah, welcome again
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be
to
here.
another 2 hours of mayhem, madness, and insanity. Gwen, welcome back from your travels.
Cute.
Glad glad your both your fathers are okay, and of course Mary. Mary's face is finally back on here. For 2 weeks we were watching her incognito because her computer took on its own life form and would not let her show her face. So we are now a party of four, and we welcome you all here. The chat room is open on the Off the Chain Facebook page. So let's get started. First of all, Gwen, let's start with your book that we released last month. So tell the folks about that book and why you added that book to your other book of September's Chill. Why all that plays together?
College. I actually wrote that in college. My creative writing class. It got me an A plus. I mentioned it in September's Chill. And my husband, bless his loving heart, found a copy of it, printed out, so that I could go in and fix it. Um, and turn it into a book to go along with all the other things. But that was actually one of the first real healing writing sessions that did something for me. I had to do the research. I had to write it. It wasn't my story. It was a collective story of, from researches of other people, yes, but it was stuff that I had to research in order to put the paper together. And it just felt like when Merlin handed it to me, it was time to put it out because it technically is the first book I wrote. Um, the poetry has been years, and that's just kind of a condensed into a book. Um, September's Chill expands more on my own personal, but I don't know. Back when I wrote that, we didn't have a whole lot of awareness that I could find or types of things that we could do. And my creative writing class let me choose my topic. So that was the topic. So now it has been turned into a book. I guess I did that somewhere in between 2007 and 2011.
Well, let's step back in history,
There.
because from the beginning of time almost, and even to this day, even in some cultures, domestic violence is an accepted form of behavior, encouraged in fact, especially in the Middle East. And we have a chat.
No, but we're all Christian women.
Yes.
Read the Bible verse about the thumb.
Yes.
Yes.
Anybody want to take that and run with it, or shall I?
If
Go
it
ahead.
is no wider than your thumb, they could, it has always been acceptable to hit you with it.
It was in the Old
Discipline
Testament. A man can discipline his wife with a rod that is no wider than
than
his
his
thumb.
thumb.
In other words, it's not abuse if you've got a stick or a rod, or that's what a
Right.
stick is.
But it
Um,
really is.
it doesn't matter how long it is, but it can't be any wider than your thumb.
Uh-huh.
So if you've got a stick that's as big as 2 fingers, you're an abuser.
And that the thing is, even in some, and I'm fixing to step in some waters, it's going to tick some people off, but at this point in my life, I don't care. Even in some quote unquote Christian religions in the United States,
It's acceptable.
it's acceptable. I lived with a neighbor whose husband abused her, and it was acceptable, and that
Denomination.
Right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you something. The Bible also says that God created man and he created woman as a helpmeet. And the Bible in the New Testament says that a man is to love his wife as God loved the church. God doesn't beat up on the church with a stick. God doesn't give the church a black eye with their fist. God doesn't starve the church to death. So if a man is to love his wife as Christ loved the church, and if a man is to love his wife as he loves himself, is a man going to abuse himself? Well, if he does, he needs some serious help. Deborah, am I right?
You're absolutely right. When you talked about the man was given the woman to be his helpmeet, it's the Hebrew word ezer, and it literally means a superior qualified helper, not superior over man, but superior alongside man. And it is the exact same word used to describe the help that the Holy Spirit is to the Father and the Son. So if the Father and the Son are not going to beat the third person of the Godhead, the Holy Spirit, then man should not be beating his ezer, his superior quality helper, either.
Gwen, your take. Because, ladies and gentlemen, all four of us have been in a relationship that counts as mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual, and or any combination of those abuse. And it starts out as subtly as the sun rising in the morning or the sun setting in the evening. It's not in your face. It starts out. Mary can tell you
I don't like that outfit. I don't like you being around that person.
Do we have to go see your parents this weekend?
Are you sure you need to go see your best friend today? She can wait.
Right. And it's subtle. In Mary's case, he would say, well, if you have time to write, you have time to clean. I mean, you could probably have eaten off of her floors at that time. But you can clean again. Really? In my case, it was the first black eye, and I was 8.5 months pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we are saying is the histrionics of abuse goes back to the beginning of time. And even today in the Middle East, women and children are treated, I can't even talk today, are treated like an expendable commodity. Their animals are treated better than they are. Especially the girls, the females, because
they're not worth as much as a man in that culture.
Exactly. They're not even worth keeping alive.
But without them, they don't have the ability to continue their culture.
Whatever it is.
There's nobody to reproduce the babies for you that you need to get your boys.
But they don't care.
And girls have always been, even as far back as like 250 years ago, women weren't that, they were more property than they were helpmates for many.
They couldn't own property.
Mm-mm.
They couldn't own money. They
couldn't have a thought in their head unless their husband or their father told them it was okay.
Women were
That's why so many women, even as far back as 100 years ago, wrote under man's name because, or they just used their initials, because people didn't respect female writers.
And women were even put in asylums if they dared if they dared have an original thought, or if they dared have emotions, or
Or
if
if
they
they dared question her.
Disagree. All they had to do
right.
was disagree.
Yeah.
Deborah, you're quiet, Deborah.
I was just thinking that over the years, I think though that if you take the domestic violence situation outside of the home and just take it into society in general, I don't know if you all remember the show years ago called Dallas. Anybody remember that? Every
Dallas
Friday
and
night, I was
Dynasty.
glued to the TV because I had to see what JR was going to do next, you know? And I remember on that show, Bobby's wife, Pam, this petite little, you know, Victoria principal, I mean, so beautiful. She slapped more people across the face than most men probably do in their life. She slapped JR, she slapped Sue Ellen, I mean, she slapped her own sister, and she hit them with a punch. I mean, she let them, knocked them down. And we deemed that as very acceptable and even kind of cheered for it because we felt like she was justified in giving it to
Mm-hmm.
somebody. And I think just society as a whole, as we have evolved, we're in such a
Wow.
place now where mental health is so poor. I mean, mental health is at an all-time, you know,
Right.
high as far as being a problem that you see this young lady, 31 years old, who was mauled to death by an alligator last week. You go on any news channel, any post on social media about it, and you've got at least 10 to 15% of the people who are cheering for the alligator. And so I think just as a whole now, society has become so violent oriented and they can sit behind a keyboard and be really brave where they can say anything, put anybody down, troll anybody, that I think that if we really knew this staggering statistic of how much domestic violence has escalated, and it has escalated, that I think it has just a lot to do with how poor the mental health is in society today. And it's usually behind closed doors when it becomes a domestic issue. And so it's just, there's not a lot of checks and balances. And most women are afraid to speak up and say anything because when I tried to speak up to a trusted friend the very first time and tell them what I was living with, they looked at me like I was suspect and ended up taking my
What did
ex-husband's.
you do to cause them to do that to you? I didn't do anything.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well, Deborah, I don't know, but yet they're the very ones who told me behind closed doors he's very immature. You know, I don't know how you put up with him. You've got to be a saint. And then when I finally came out and said, well, here's what he's doing, I was a liar.
Mm-hmm.
and that would give me pause to think, okay, so what's going on behind their closed doors, because now they have to look at themselves and their relationship, and if they're accepting that same type of behavior and you put it out there, then they have to examine from within as to, ooh, this does sound familiar, but I'm
Yeah.
not ready to accept it yet. I keep making excuses.
Yeah, it's more of when you respond with what's actually happening after they've told you things like that. It's um more that they have to really look in the mirror and face everything, and they don't want to because now what do they do? What are they going to do about their situation that resembles some of the things in the one that they were complaining you were in, and now you're telling them this, but they don't want to believe it because that's why. Um,
That's exactly the case. And of course, you don't know who I'm talking about, so I feel comfortable saying this, but the very person who did not believe me had confided in me at one time that she had slept with her husband's brother. So there was a very dark skeleton in that closet. So I can't believe you, Deborah, and I can't take this battle on because then what you know about me might come out in the open. So I've got to make you the bad guy because I'm a bad guy and I
yeah,
don't want
there's
this to
that
come out.
too. You also said something earlier about domestic violence statistics increasing. I'm not so sure that they've actually increased so much as it is that there's more awareness and more being reported because of that awareness. So
Yeah,
therefore the
it's
statistics
surprising.
are rising.
There was always a stigma.
Sure.
And also, a lot of people won't press charges or admit what's going on because they don't want the repercussions. They're afraid if I tell somebody that this person is hurting me, this person's going to come back and hurt me more.
We lost Gwendolyn. We don't have her face.
Am I here yet? I mean, am I still here?
You're
I
still
hear
here, but
you,
your
but
face
your
went bye-bye.
video is gone.
We don't know.
The thing that popped up, it said something about a new recording. Should I go out and come back?
That wouldn't hurt.
Hey, I'll be right back.
Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens on live video. You just roll with it because you can. Just got to roll with it. We don't make any big deal about it. The thing that now with the awareness and there she is, and the difference in the laws, because laws have changed. Law enforcement has always hated to
Domestic
go
violence.
into the DV call. They hate it because number one, you're dealing with human emotions that are out of control. Number two, you have a he said, she said. You don't know who started it. You don't know why it started. You don't know the history behind the relationship, if this is a first time, a 10th time, or if this has been going on for years. And so when Ellie gets there, they have to separate the two parties involved and get two separate stories. Now, what they have started doing is whoever has the marks of physical violence, they arrest the other person. If both people have the marks, they arrest both of them. Then when
And
you
how
have,
do you know that?
I didn't get arrested.
Sometimes the wrong person gets arrested because the other person is baiting them.
exactly.
And they actually, but this goes back to what Debra's talking about, society as a whole. They now have videos on TV where they do the TikTok trend, and it's to see how far you can push your significant other. Depends on whether it's my wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, whatever. See how many times you can get away with insulting them or teasing them to a point where they retaliate.
People
It's not,
think it's funny.
yeah.
Oh,
People
yeah.
think it's funny.
Yeah.
You remember, I'm sure you guys do, there was a show back in the 90s or early 2000s called Jackass.
Hated that show.
I did too. I hated it.
With a passion. But the guy, and I refuse to watch anything with that main actor in it anymore because it's always stupid. But the whole idea, I mean, they had millions of people following them to watch them pull. And there's another one out called Practical Joker.
Yep.
4 or 5 good friends, and they pull jokes on each other, and then they have a tally, and the loser has to do something humiliating.
Mm-hmm.
And people think it's funny.
It's immature.
And it's a form of abuse because
Mhm.
if
It
you
is a form
really
of abuse.
care about somebody, you don't treat them with that kind of humiliation. And people think that domestic violence is regulated in a box to partners or children within the family unit. No, it's like Mary's talking about. Just because we have social media and just because we have influencers out there, that is not the kind of influence that you need to be putting out there, ladies and gentlemen. It is destructive. it is humiliating, and it encourages bad behavior. And when you encourage bad behavior, okay, for instance, 4th of July, down in Miami, they had a teen takeover. People got hurt. And this is not an accepted form of behavior. There are consequences for this behavior. And when you say, okay, we're going to go take over this city and the citizens that live there, we don't care what happens to them. If they get hurt, they get hurt. We don't care. Where's the parent? Where's the influence that says, if I catch you down in Miami, if you show up on a video, you think you're in trouble down there, just wait till I get you home.
Yeah, that attitude though has kind of gone by the wayside.
Look,
That's the problem. But with domestic violence, a cycle repeated, it kind of goes into like from generations, the acceptance, the why it's so hard and why people cycle in it, or whether it's a generational cycle, like from parent to child to their marriage, which my first marriage, that's kind of what happened.
well,
He grew up
because
with that. I did not.
children
So
and children see the behavior
it was
between the,
normal for him.
right. And they think that's the way that love is. That's not the way that love is. Am I right, Deborah?
Absolutely. And that's one thing that my children learned. They told me this, that we learn how not to treat a woman by watching
Yes.
what dad did to you.
You're either
It's
going to
like,
go one or the other extreme.
yeah.
You got a
And
50-50 chance there. It's your choice.
I mean, I literally had to be mother and father. I joke with my kids today and I tell them I also won a Father's Day card, but it's true. And they have told me on more than one occasion, they said, we learned from watching him how not to treat a woman. And I'm telling you, they are just two of the most gentlemanly, kind, considerate young men you'd ever want to meet because they watched the wrong way to be. And neither of them have that knee jerk mentality. Neither of them have that poor mental health where they're up one minute, down the next. And, you know, we were talking about bad mental health. I think that in this world we live in with all the bad mental health, I think really we can stand here, we can point fingers and say, oh, look what they're doing, look what they're doing. But I think it's a call, a wake up call to look at ourselves and say, do I have any bad mental health? Do I
That's
laugh
right.
at things that really aren't funny? Do I say things I shouldn't say? Do I hit the laugh button when somebody has a tragic accident? I mean, I don't know what kind of person hits the laugh button when the article is about someone dying, no matter how they died, it doesn't matter. A life has been taken, somebody's son, somebody's daughter, somebody's spouse, and for your reaction to be laughing, you need a mental health check, man. There's no two ways about it. You need a mental health check. And let this be something that we look inside ourselves and say, do I have any of this in me?
Would it be fair to say, as I'm sitting here thinking about the trend within the writing industry as well as the TV motion picture industry, and the trend is on how much more violent can I make it? How much more violent can I show so that we get the audience used to when you had a train wreck on a movie, the camera just faded away and you used your imagination. Now
Right.
it's how much more gore, how many more limbs,
Flash.
right. And that has contributed
Sure.
to the acceptance of violence within society. And that's a shame.
It's a shame.
Mary, I see the wheels turning.
Well, I'm just sitting here remembering a story I just recently read. Because, you know, I just wrote a true story about domestic violence on men.
Right?
And I read one that one that I wrote about happened in Australia. The one I just recently read about happened in England. And this woman basically imprisoned her husband. He wasn't allowed to work. She controlled all the money. He said that he would, when he was first rescued, he woke up in a bed and didn't know where he was because he'd always slept on the floor. And he said, and a good day was when he only got punched instead of stabbed or slashed with a knife. He wasn't allowed to seek medical help. He used crazy glue, I think, and saran wrap to bandage his wounds. I don't know how he got out of the house, but apparently he went down to a body of water one day to clean up after she had attacked him. And they found her, they called her evil and blah, blah, blah. She couldn't confess to it. And she'd held him prisoner for over 20 years. And she only got 7 years prison time.
That was all?
That was all.
Yeah, domestic violence doesn't carry a very long term.
Okay,
And it should carry as long of a term as anybody who decides to take a life. Because that's basically what domestic violence does. It takes the life that you were meant for to begin with. When God creates us, we're created to do things, specific things in our life. Well, Satan comes in and says, no, let me see what I can do to stop it. And that's kind of what domestic violence does. Switches the whole everything around so that all you feel is and all you learn is the evil parts of things. Now and again, you'll get a nice thing and it'll be like, okay, cool. Now, when is the other shoe going to drop? What's going to happen next? You mentioned something earlier also about both parties being arrested when there's marks on both of you. It really depends on where they are. My marks were on my neck. His marks were claw marks from here all the way down, and I shredded it inside of his lip and everything. His eyes, I caught inside of his eyelids with my nails. In self-defense. But because I had marks on my neck from his fingers, he went to jail and I did not.
Because it was self-defense wounds on your part.
Right.
And it depends on the cops that are there. And there's a lot of moving parts.
And what kind of record they may have had before you met them.
There you go. See, and also, many times the reason people are hesitant to report domestic violence is, yeah, you can get a temporary restraining order.
It's a piece of paper, they just walk through it.
And you can get them locked up. However, once they get out on bond, 9 times out of 10, they're going to come back after the abused. Gwen, I don't know if you remember a guy by the name of Michael Hollis who lived down the street from us that Brandy was involved with when she was a kid. Well, he married this girl and he abused her for years, and then he caught her one day outside of where she worked and he shot her 3 times in the head, in the arm, and someplace else. Well, he went to prison and he just got out. And when Brandy told me that he had gotten out, I said, you need to watch your back, because this man, Debra, he should have been drowned at birth. Seriously.
My daddy says somebody's mama should have spit.
He beat up his grandmother so bad he caused her to have a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
He held Brandy, he kidnapped Brandy and held her hostage in his house for 3 days, and I couldn't get her out. This is how bad he was. So the whole point of the story is his wife did everything right. She had the TROs. He went to jail. He got out of jail. He came after her. He shot her. And this is why many victims.
Was that in the 90s when like 2 or 3 of them in Jackson County? Yeah.
Yep, yep.
That's she is part of the reason I got my aggravated stalking alert.
Because they will come back, and the abused has to have the courage to understand, if you stay in this relationship, you're gonna die. If you get out, you have a 50-50 chance of surviving. But if you stay in the relationship, for sure you're gonna die, because that's what they do. Their attitude is, if I can't have you,
Nobody else can either.
right. And if I can't have you, nobody else will want you, because I'm going to make it that way. Am I right, ladies?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And they're not afraid of breaking bones to where you can't run from them either in your feet.
Yeah.
There you go.
But even if the violence isn't physical, it's still violent.
The emotional and the mental are
Mine was
rough.
absolute psychological and emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And I was convinced that he was the best I could have, that nobody else would want me. He played so many mind games on me that the only thing that saved me was God. Because for 2 years, every single day I would hear the same phrase over and over. Mary, if you want to live, leave.
My voice was, it's time to go.
I couldn't understand it, though, because he didn't hit me. If he had hit me, I could understand this imminent danger. But only once I was out of the abuse could I see it for abuse, as abuse. I mean, he had a sister who was severely beaten so badly that she took her own life to get away from him. And you could see her abuse. You could, every time she had a black eye or a bloody nose, you knew they'd had a problem. Mine was administered as these left-handed compliments, an insult that was supposed to make me laugh.
Mm-hmm.
These non-funny jokes. And when I finally left, I understood what God had been telling me. If you want to live spiritually, you have
Debra,
to
Debra, I see your wheels turning. What's your thought process?
Yeah, Mary made me think of something. I was thinking of the devil. He's going to get locked up for 1,000 years. And when he gets out, he's still going to be the devil. He's still going to do bad things. He's not going to change. He's not going to turn into something good. He's still going to be the devil. And unfortunately, people that follow the devil are the same way. Now, many of them have a change of heart and, they come to know the Lord and their life has changed. And I thank God for a changed life. But there are people who follow the devil and act just like him. And no matter how many times they get locked up, no matter how many times they get called out on their behavior, it doesn't matter. They're evil. They're going to continue to be evil. And when someone's evil, even if you think you're going to be lonely, buy a puppy, buy a cat.
Go get you a stuffed animal. It don't talk back. It don't eat. It don't need no care.
But if somebody's evil, they're going to keep doing the same thing to you over and over and over. They lie. They tell you they've changed. They tell you, I've heard stories where, oh, my husband told me he was so sorry and he really meant it and he was crying and saying he was sorry. And the next time he hit her, knocked her unconscious, and when she opened her eyes, her head was in the stove and he had the gas on. So when someone is evil, Maya Angelou said, when somebody tells you who they are, believe them.
Believe them.
Yes.
Yeah. And when you see that someone is evil, no matter how lonely, no matter if you have to sleep on someone's couch for a month till you get on your own feet, if someone's evil, they are a prime candidate to kill you someday. And we see that recently, how many high-profile cases, Corey Richens, which poisoned her husband with a cocktail, the man in Hawaii that pushed his wife or tried to push her off a cliff and kill her, taking her out for a birthday hike. Listen, some people are just flat out evil. And if you're sleeping with one eye open at night, you need to get away. You just
Sharp
need to get away.
objects under your pillow or bed.
Yeah.
That's
Gotta
true.
get away.
And the sad part, ladies and gentlemen, in this entire dynamic of evilness, if there are children involved, you are responsible for those children's safety. You are responsible to see that they are not taken out because the evil has decided, well, if the evil can't have you, then you know what? I'm going to take the kids out. That will totally destroy you.
Yeah.
So they do. We have to learn not to accept bad behavior and evil people as a norm in our society.
Amen. Yes. And I want to say something, Yvonne, what you said was so powerful about the children. If there's children involved, chances are the parent, whether it's the mother or the father, because women can be abusive as well.
Amen.
You need to keep a log. You need to keep a journal. On Tuesday, July 7th, whatever, at 9:40, he smacked little Susie across the face because she forgot to take her lunch to school. When you go through the divorce process where custody is concerned,
Documentation's important.
going to be invaluable. And don't try and do it alone. I don't care if you have to get it on a credit card. Get yourself a good lawyer. And when you're going through a divorce with a domestically violent person, you don't need a nice little lawyer. You need a shark.
You need a bulldog.
And
You need
not
a
only that,
shark.
Not only that, ladies and gentlemen, but you also have to report it. You have to have documentation.
Yes.
And if the cop comes out to a domestic violence occurrence and they don't want to make the report, then you ask for a supervisor. Because I can guarantee you that if that report is not made, it did not happen. And any good quote unquote defense attorney who's on the other side will say, well, did you report it? Well, no, sir, I did not. Then how do we know it happened?
Right.
Well, he hit me. I was there. But did you report it? Well,
Or
no,
video it. These days you can video it and then you have the proof whether you can report it or not, because sometimes you can't report it. They won't allow you to make
But
contact.
the evidence is there. If you find a way to document the evidence, it is the evidence is non-disputable. Facts are non-disputable. Sure, some attorney will try to twist the facts,
Yes,
but the
yes.
facts are the facts.
Listen, you can be Mother of the Year, and the opposing attorney will make it sound like all you do is lay on the couch, eat chips, and you've got a needle hanging out of your arm. And that is what they are paid to do. But when you've got facts, as you said, Yvonne, you've got maybe some video recordings, you've got audio recordings, you've got a log, a journal. When you've got the facts, that's a whole different ball game, and it really behooves you to do that. In the state of Florida, I had someone from the Department of Children's and Families tell me that rarely in Florida will the judge ever take the children from the mother and give primary custody to the father. I mean, the mother has to be a total meth head to have the children taken away. But don't rely on that.
Right.
Get your documentation. Get your ducks in a row. I said this last time, and I'm going to say it again. Don't worry about being kind. Be smart. Be wise. And if you see this man or this woman are bad news for you and for your children, start documenting today.
And start a plan to get that
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And Gwendolyn used to have a go bag. She built herself a go bag
For
because
my bestie.
she knew that there was going to be a point in time. It took me 5 years to get out because I had a 5 year plan. I knew it's at any point I might wind up dead within those 5 years, but I'd be dead and he was going to prison. So it was a win-win either way. The only thing that I would regret was leaving my children behind because they were still little.
Right.
The two older ones were in their teens, but I still had a little one at home. But he would go away. Mary, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I totally agree with everything that's being said because, it's so easy. Like my sister-in-law, we make excuses for them. When he graduates college, it'll get better. When he gets a job, it'll get better. When he finishes this project, it'll get better. When we have a baby, it'll get better. When we don't have a baby, it'll get better. When the baby's grown up, there's always one more excuse.
Yeah.
And she finally left him. And when she did, she moved away and he found her. And she said, no more. I'm not living this life anymore. And she took her own life. So he killed her one way or the other. And it does, I want to stress to everybody listening, whether you are a man or a woman, if you think you're being abused, the answer is 99% yes. If you think that the behavior that your spouse or significant other is displaying is anything less than 100% respectful, you don't need that. Everybody deserves to be either alone or in a respectful relationship. And if you can't find somebody who can respect you and love you for who you are right now, you're better off alone.
Yes.
And
Yes.
in that same vein, hang on, hold that thought, Deborah. In that same vein, even at your lowest point, you have to have some modicum of your own self-respect hidden deeply that they cannot reach. Right, Deborah?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I was actually just agreeing with everything Mary said. So I totally agree. You're better off single. At the end of my book, I kind of go through the different stages that a woman or man could be in. And one is you're happily married. God bless you. My parents were married happily for over 60 years. Did they fight? Yeah, sometimes, but they fought fair. You're not going to agree. Come on, you're not ooey gooey in love 24/7 for 60 years. Give me a break. That just doesn't happen. But you could be that person who's single and you're really happy. Your life is full. You've got lots of friends. You have activities. Maybe you love your job. Well, just enjoy your singlehood. Or you could be somebody who really would like to have a relationship someday, but you know that your last few have been unhealthy. So
Heal.
you've got to kind of do the work and you've got to see, okay, I'm the common denominator here. Why did I attract these guys? Different name, different truck color, but it was the same guy. Why did I go for that and do some internal work? Or you could be a woman who's really ready and you feel you're healed and you're whole and you're ready for somebody. Then just keep going on with your life and build your own life until God brings the right person into your life. But we don't have to.
Expect it.
Yeah, when you least expect it, there'll be that email, there'll be that look, there'll be that chance meeting in Wawa, whatever it is, there'll be something. And but you gotta, if you're not happy single, you're not going to be happy married because happiness is not somebody else's job. Happiness is an inside job. You've got to be happy first. And I always tell single women this: if you want more, you have to become more. Improve your life. Become a better person. Get your pajama pants and your hair out of the scrunchie. Get your pajama pants off when you go to Publix. Up your game a little bit, and just become more. Read more books. Pick up a good hobby. Go join a book club. Write a book.
Come
Whatever.
on this show.
Yeah. Go to France.
Deborah,
But
that's That's good advice, even for people who are in relationships that are healthy, especially long term relationships. I guarantee you, your mother didn't, for lack of a better phrase, let herself go.
No.
A
My
lot of
mom was
people,
like, she in her 80s, she looked like she was 60. In her 70s, she looked like she was 45. My mom went to the salon. She had nice clothes. She always had, by the time my dad got home from work, my mom had a nice outfit on and had makeup on and her hair done. She never let my dad open that door and look like 80 miles of bad road. She never did that.
but that happens a lot of times in long term relationships.
Yeah, it does.
And that's where complacency takes over.
You're right.
You think, oh, well, I've been with him for X number of years. I know I'm solid in this relationship. He still loves me and everything's, it never hurts me. But that's where you drift apart sometimes.
Yes.
And so if you take pride in who you are as a human, take pride in the fact that you are in a good relationship, and it goes both ways. He needs to also show a level of pride in his what
Yes.
happened here.
So, Gwendolyn,
Okay.
would it be fair to say that when that person, as Deborah says, God allows to show up in your life, and that person says, I don't care where you've been in your life, because what happened before was just an episode, it's not who you are. I accept you, damaged, flaws, and all, and I'm hoping that you will accept me, damaged, flaws, and all. Does that make for a good foundation to start a relationship and build on?
It can. It can also not. My second marriage, it didn't fail because of him or how he treated me, because he treated me like a queen. But I wasn't healed enough to be what I needed to be his wife. And I'm not the person who he really needed, or he wasn't the person I really needed. You got to be real careful with that. But with Merlin, I think it depends on how they interact with you after they know. If they still treat you the same way so that you feel that safety, that ability to be who you really are and express your own. And it took me forever to do that. My second husband helped me to heal some of that, but he also reminded me that I was still lovable. So sometimes it was kind of like a rebound marriage, even though I had had some time in between. I just wasn't healed enough. With Marlon, it was different. We took the time to make sure we were both healed. I mean, we waited 11 and a half years to get married. So both of us at that point were like, marriage is harder, because it kills your single life, not because it takes you out. Just that was how we looked at it. I looked at it as a symbol of losing what freedom I had gained. But you also have to be careful. The cycle thing. You have to be careful that when you've been in that relationship, especially the longer you're in it, is that, or if you're like me and just mouthy to begin with, um, not to become like them, not to pick up their bad habits because that's what you see on a daily basis. Kind of like a child, you can't necessarily stop them from seeing what's going on in the house, So if it's going on, the generational cycle starts because they think it's okay. That's how they think you express things. Um, but when you're in a marriage that's like that, a lot of times you can become like them. You can start mirroring that back at them. Um, if you are determined that you're not going to live in that. I was determined and knew that I was worth more than how he was treating me, and that when we said our vows and he said that he would love and cherish and honor, he wasn't doing that. So he had already broken his vows in my first marriage. But I would flip back at him with similar wording or throw his words back at him. I would hide sharp objects so that when he got really crazy, I could get just as crazy if I had to save my life or um, so I had to really soul search and figure out where some of that came from because that's not what I was taught, and trace it back and face the triggers that caused it and all the other crazy stuff. And it took me years. But the biggest part was losing my child.
And this is what Deborah was saying,
Mm-hmm.
is when we go back into those type of relationships and we keep doing the same thing over and over again expecting a different result, it's time to do the inner soul searching.
Mm-hmm.
Is it me that's allowing this to happen? Not, and I don't mean that in, okay, I'll let him beat me up, but is it within me that I go back into these relationships, because I've learned that I'm not worthwhile, as Mary says. I
Mm-hmm.
will settle for whatever's out there because, as Deborah says, I don't want to be lonely, or I don't know any better because I've been conditioned that that's all there is.
Right.
And we talk about, well, go get professional help. Well, the four of us, I'm sitting here thinking, the four of us, it doesn't get much more professional. You can talk to someone in that field all day long. If the person in that field has not been on this journey,
They have no clue.
all they have is the book learning. They can't tell you what Gwendolyn just said about, because of the behavior of her husband, she began to mirror it out of self-defense.
He was as
And
toxic as he was by the end of it.
and that's not healthy, because, like Deborah says, the children see it. And Gwendolyn says the children begin to mirror that behavior.
Yeah.
The cycle has to be broken, and it begins with us, with you. It's not somebody else's job to stop it. Am I right, Deborah?
You're absolutely right. And as you were speaking, the word that just kept coming to me was desperation. Desperate people do desperate
Desperate
things.
thing.
And when we are desperate, maybe we need help financially. Oh, he asked me to move in with him. Now I don't have to try to scrape together rent every month. Or he's got an extra car he's going to let me borrow. We're desperate. So what we do is we get into the relationship out of that need that it looks like they can fulfill. And then we start seeing their bad behavior. So what do? We make excuses because we don't want it to be a deal breaker. We don't want to have to give up the free living. We don't want to have to give up the use of the car. We don't want to have to be alone on Friday night. So, okay, well, he said something derogatory about me, but he was just tired. Or, he didn't fulfill this promise. He stood me up a couple times, but he worked a long day. No, now you're making excuses because you're desperate. So if like you said, Yvonne, if we look inwardly, I think the first place you should look inwardly is, am I desperate? Because if you're desperate, you're vulnerable.
They used that. They used that desperation. In Mary's case, and Mary's talked about this on the show last week, she was so young, so much in love that when he said, "Oh, you want to go away to college, but you'll forget about me." Manipulation, right, Mary?
Yeah, that should have been my first red flag. Because if he was secure in our relationship, he would have known that I could never leave him. I would, the relationship is as strong as the people in it.
Yeah, good.
I
That's good.
had no idea, but the way he phrased it, it sounded like such a compliment to me. All of his insults sounded like compliments. And then you get used to that and you think that's like,
And then when
Gwendolyn
they
said,
give you one of those backhanded compliments, you're like, oh, until you realize what they
yeah.
are.
And then you realize you're saying things like that to your child. And you don't, my relationship with both of my sons has improved dramatically once I got out of the relationship with their father. Because I learned how to speak properly and how to have a real relationship with myself.
It took me longer.
Debra, you talk about being desperate. When I left him after 25 years, I was a desperate woman.
You got a thing for 25.
I do. I have a thing for 5. So I got married on 5/5/05.
Wow.
Yeah. Didn't plan it.
Day before my grandmother's birthday.
That was crazy. But I was so desperate for self-validation, self-assurance, independence, freedom. And I didn't even realize I left him on the 4th of July. But I walked away with what belonged to me and half of what belonged to the marriage. And my life, the standard of living went down briefly, but the quality of living went way up.
Absolutely.
Because I sat down with a notepad and a pen and my God, and I said, this is how much money I make. These are the things I need. Help me get them at this price. And God was like, nah, I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to knock off 20 or 30% of everything you just asked for.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to save money, and I was able to actually get a better place, a better position farther down the road.
That's awesome.
And because we are all women of faith, we understand that when God makes a promise, God always keeps that promise. Unlike us as humans, his promises never fail. And one promise that God has given us is he will make sure that we have our daily bread. He makes sure we have what we need. Want is a different animal altogether. But he plainly tells us that if he's going to take care of the sparrows, you think he's not going to take care of us. It is up to us to absolutely believe that no matter what, God will take care of us. Gwendolyn, I see the wheels turning.
My mama used to tell me that all the time.
And he will. I've seen
He
it
has
time
never failed to supply what I asked for. Ask, seek, knock.
Exactly.
I can't tell you the verse, but I can tell you ask, seek, knock. Because my mama kept pounding it in my head growing up. You have to ask for what you need and want. You might get what you want, but you might not. You have to seek it out. Like, if you want a job, you've got to be putting in applications. It's not going to necessarily fall in your lap. Occasionally it does, but not normally. Then you have to knock. Well, when you're asking, you're knocking on God's door to say, hey, this is what I need. Help me figure out what I need to do over here. This isn't working down here. In the, I want to say the worst, but I don't know that it really was the worst, but in the life or unalive moment with hands on my neck, I couldn't talk. I was fighting back. The only thing I had left because I kept blacking out and then coming back to was Jesus help. And the only thing I could do was think it. We have a chat message.
Okay.
It's just me. I have to go, ladies. I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
No,
Okay.
Well, we are glad you're here. So
thank you for being here.
your final thought, Deborah.
My final
Would you?
thought is the three of you are filled with wisdom and the Spirit of God, and I think that everybody watching needs to listen to what you're saying.
Thank you,
Oh,
my
thank
darling.
you.
My mama in
Thank you for
heaven
letting me
thanks
be a
you.
part. Thank you so much. God bless you.
God bless
Well,
you.
we
Have a
are
great
glad
day.
you,
Thanks for joining us.
and we will bring you back. Write another book. Bye, Deborah. So Deborah had to leave us, but that doesn't mean that we're done here. So when we say that we're women of faith, we mean that we're women of faith. I know in my lifetime, with the things that have gone on in my life, if I say, God, I'm giving this to you, I have to give it to him and let it go. God makes a promise, God keeps the promise, but that doesn't mean that that promise is going to happen today or tomorrow. God doesn't have a timeline. He doesn't have a clock. He doesn't have 24 hours in his day. God does what God does when God does it, because God's got a grand plan. We have to have the faith and the belief that he will take care of what we have asked him to take care of. Now, I'm not talking about, God, I need a new Mercedes, drop one in my yard. To begin with, I wouldn't drive one. And number two, that is a material thing that passes.
God,
It's
I need
not
a
like,
car, and he sends you a Ford, and you're a Chevy girl.
right. And sometimes God sends you people. When you've asked for something, he sends you people.
He
Go
sends you
ahead, Mary.
people ahead of time.
Mary's story. We never get tired of this story.
From the very beginning, God has done that, sending me the people I need when I need them. And I've got so many thoughts in my head. I'm going back to what Gwendolyn was talking about: ask, seek, not. Ask and you will be answered. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door will be opened. But you have to listen. You have to first listen. When God said, Mary, if you want to live, leave. It took me 2 years to understand what was being said. And when I finally made that leap of faith and I left a good man, he was a good man. He just wasn't good to me or for me.
If he's so good, they can have him.
Well, he's moved on out of this life and I'm fine. But from the moment that I walked out and I sat down with my yellow pad and my pen and I said, God, help me. Well, actually, before then, because the night that I made up my mind, it's so hard to explain to people who've never been abused what the psychological abuse can do, because most physical abusers also are psychological abusers.
Yes.
That's how they trick you. And it might not have been but another minute or two before mine got physical. I don't know. But I was having the same thing, same experience you had. I didn't have the hands around my throat, but I had an out of body experience the night that I made up my mind I've got to leave. And I tried reasoning with my ex. I tried talking with him. Nothing worked. So I prayed. And the prayers got, The prayers got through. And I remember God saying in the Bible, I will plant a hedgerow of protection around you. And I kept thinking that night that I needed help. I needed protection. How was I at 2 o'clock in the morning in my pajamas going to escape what I felt was imminent danger? Because I was on the couch and my ex was leaning across me over the couch, yelling. Well, he never yelled. The man never raised his voice. He could beat you to death with a feather. And he was just very calmly accusing and talking and just blaming and whatever. And I said, God, you've got to help me. And that hedgerow of protection popped into my mind. And I remember God saying, if you want to live, leave. The last time I heard that was that night. And I said, Lord, I trust you. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I need your help. And that hedgerow of protection, nobody needs to see it or feel it, but the person
you.
who's being protected. And I felt God right there come between me and my ex. And my ex jerked away with a gasp. And until the day he died, the man could never reach out to touch me unless I reached out to him first. And so I sat down with my paper the next morning and I said, help me again. And everything fell into place. I mean, I could have, but I didn't want the family car. I didn't want the house. All I wanted was what belonged to me. And when we went to court, the judge looked at me, he said, are you sure you don't want to sell the house and get half the assets? I said, Your Honor, I know there's more liability on that house than there is escrow. I know what it's worth, I know what it's valued at, and I know how much is owed on it. He can keep it. All I ask is that if he wants to sell it, my sons get first refusal. So that was all I took. I didn't want the car. I didn't want anything. I went to a car dealership, told my story to the man. He said, would you mind if I pray with you? I said, please. We started praying right there on the lot. And he said, okay, I've got the car right exactly what you need. Everything I asked for, I got cheaper. Next thing God sent to me was Curtis. And I cannot say how good that man has been to me. The fact that he believed in me as a writer was enough. He supports me now, and he's waiting for the next book to come out.
When's Aaron coming out?
He's working on 2 books now. I don't know when we're going to get him on our book tour had to be postponed. We're, just chill out. We're working on it.
Let me know.
The,
We'll figure it out.
I will.
the thing,
But,
ladies, go ahead, ma'am.
I wanted to make a comment about the last person that God sent to me that I know was a God thing. And that was Yvonne. That was Yvonne. Because in talking about trusting in God, that trust has to extend. When God puts someone in your life, and you know God did it, you have to trust that person. And if I didn't trust Yvonne to begin with, which I did, but I didn't trust myself to let go. But once I learned to let it go and trust the process, between Yvonne and God, 25 books in a year,
And it's the 250th birthday for America.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I got this thing about twos and fives.
Like I said, you got a 25 thing going. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, another thing that you have to understand is when you have made up your mind that you are getting out of the situation, do not, under any circumstances, I don't care how apologetic, how
Don't go.
remorseful, how much he gives you flowers or takes you to dinner or buys you diamonds,
It's
do
all
not,
fake.
do not tell them what you're planning on doing, because the abuse gets worse.
Yes.
The restrictions become worse.
The only person you need to tell your plan to, other than you and God, is the person who might have to help you get out. The one
Exactly.
that's going to show up with a truck to throw whatever you can get in it and go, or give you a place to run to. Those are the only people that need to know your plan. It is a need to know basis, kind of like the military. They don't know, they don't need to know. They can't tell Sam over here who's going to run back and tell the abuser.
There you go.
So, a secret's only a secret when it's your secret. And
Yeah,
you're the only one besides God that knows it.
because if two people know it, then one of them has to go bye-bye. Just saying.
Yep.
I mean,
Because
that's
then it's no longer a secret.
right.
And ladies and gentlemen,
Then it's a plan.
with abusers, whether male or female, with abusers, they use every tool in their toolbox, and then they create some to keep the control. It's not about love, it's about control. It's about manipulation. It's about choking the very spirit out of another human being, because the abuser has no self-esteem, no self-confidence, no self-control, no understanding of what self-love is. And when I'm talking self-love, the love within themselves, because they don't love themselves, they're not going to love you. They're not even going to like you. They're not going to love the children. They're not going to love your circle of people, because they don't love themselves. And then that's a them problem, but it becomes a you problem as you continue to live in it. Am I right, ladies?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So you can't stand with one foot in the door and one foot out for very long either. It gets
No.
too mentally exhausting, and you will slip up and tell the plan. I didn't do it, but I have seen it happen.
And the thing, hold that thought a minute, Gwen. The thing is, when there's children involved, you, the abused, stand a very good chance of becoming the abuser to your children, because there's no outlet for your hurt, your pain, your frustration, your inability to do something about it.
Because
So
you get triggered and you react, and it causes harm to your children.
So this is why we call it generational. It becomes a domino effect, and it doesn't stop.
The harm comes also from them watching you be abused.
Exactly.
Whether
Or if you don't abuse the children will turn around and start abusing you, because it's okay, daddy does it, mama does it
Or
to the
each
other
other.
person. And then they start abusing each other because it's the only thing in the household that is steady. The happy times are fleeting.
Aaron and I had a conversation, I guess last week, about the abuse that was handed down from his father's family.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all, there have been books and documentaries, which I didn't know about till many years later. There was an Aaron Frakes, who was my son's great-great-grandfather in Missouri. There have been books written about the Frakes tragedies. Most of the people didn't live past 36. They were either killed or took care of themselves. There was a lot of sexual abuse, a lot of other abuse. It was just handed down, and there was a meanness that I didn't know about from my ex's brothers toward my sons. It's all in good fun. You know, it's just a joke. We didn't mean nothing by it. Nobody got hurt. I mean, they would hold my children down, 10 years old, and fart in their faces. And they wouldn't move until the smell dissipated. Now, who does that to a child?
Somebody trying to suffocate them?
They're uncles, and they think it's funny. And Aaron told me, he said, Mom, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I'm not even going to tell you all the other things they did to us, because you'd want to go kill them. But we both, and his brother admits, you know, there were things that happened that Mom doesn't need to know, because the uncles are still alive and don't need to be.
The thing we have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, is this. We have a responsibility to ourselves first. We have before any of that, we have a responsibility to God. We have a responsibility to ourselves. And any children we bring into this world, we have a responsibility to them, because we made the choice to have children, whether by design or, as they used to say, I got pregnant by accident. Well, no, honey, you didn't. Okay?
No, you opened them legs. It's over.
It was not an accident. You allowed it to happen because you made a choice. So once that choice is made, there's consequences. And the consequences are you have children. If you are not woman or man enough to accept those three responsibilities, then I feel sorry for you. Because you have no idea how to live in a world where you have to be accountable for your actions and your responsibilities. Then you live a life of entitlement. Oh, I'm entitled to do this because this happened. Or I'm entitled to this because I didn't ask for these kids. Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
And it don't matter what you use to try to prevent having babies. You still gonna get them if God's gonna send them. It don't matter.
And when you make up your mind to sleep with somebody, that's the consequence of the action. And I hear women say, well, it's my body, my choice. Yeah, well, you already made the choice. So you have these responsibilities. And if your children are not confident enough in their relationship with you to come to you, like what happened to Mary's children, that they didn't come to her. And it wasn't because they weren't confident enough. It was they were afraid of their uncles. That's an abusive situation.
Mm-hmm.
It is our job as adults to protect our children. I don't care if it's my child by birth or a stranger's child. I'm not going to allow that child to get hurt if I can help it. So at some point in a relationship that is abusive, you have to make... My mother used to say, your brain is a muscle.
If you don't use it, it quits working.
It's like every other muscle in your body. If you don't use that muscle, it atrophies.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make that choice, and you have to stand by that choice that taking care of business no matter what it cost me personally. I'm not going to allow this to happen anymore. Children are innocent. They don't know how to make adult decisions. They don't know how, they can't legally get out of the situation unless they pick up the phone and call Family and Children's Services, which is a whole nother can of worms.
Don't open that can of worms if you ain't got to.
Because they're worse than where a child is coming from. They
So
put
care ain't no better.
They put children in worse situations and then have plausible deniability. That's another subject for another day. So understand this. The reason we had this forum today, and we had it last week, and the reason that Gwendolyn has written her books, and Debra has written her books, and Mary has written that book, is for education, awareness, being responsible adults in a world of less and less responsible adults, to make people understand that there are choices.
Not making a choice is a choice.
Exactly.
Yes.
I want to leave, but I'm not making that choice. You made a choice to stay. That is your choice. Nobody can change that. It doesn't matter how many times you try to rewrite it, look around it, flip it around. Tell Sam Hill over in another town that that's not the thing. You just can't leave. You can leave. You are just too afraid to leave, and that is still a choice. For whatever reason, it doesn't matter. It all boils down. You made a choice to get into a relationship. You make a choice to get out of it.
And
You make a choice to stay.
I love the excuse, well, I didn't have a choice. Yeah, honey, you do. There's always a choice.
I don't know. I was 2.5 hours away from my mama, and I figured out a way to make the plan work.
Right,
Had
Mary?
nobody. Where I was at, I was taken to a town. I knew absolutely nobody. The same town I lost my daughter in, the whole shooting shebang into boodles. So I know all about having to face your triggers and face the choices and how do I get from here to there without somebody having to come down here, and how much stuff am I going to have to leave behind, and do I really care if I leave it all behind? Because when I walked out, I had one uniform for work, my hair stuff that I had to do to fix my hair, my pocketbook, and that was it, and I put it in a trash bag on the way out the door.
So what these women are telling you all is what we leave behind is
That is also, yeah, leaving is also the beginning of a lot more than what you may think you are ready to deal with. That has a lot of that's a lot of reasons people stay. You leave, he chase you down, he drag you back, or her, or whatever. So you go back. Um, I didn't have that issue because, well, my mama likes pew pews. Um, well, she did. I'm sorry. Um, and had a very strong sense of protecting her child. But not everybody's parents are going to do that. Sometimes you're going to have to do that for yourself if that's what it takes to get out alive.
And don't allow the abuser to use your children as a weapon, to use your family as a weapon, to use friends as a weapon, because the first thing they're going to do is they're going to try to turn the children against you. You know, I was really good to your mother. I just don't understand. I gave her everything. No, you didn't. Or they call up family member. I don't understand what happened.
Yeah.
I was good to her.
Or the neighbors. I don't know what happened. And then they're like, what happened? And it's like, unless you are in this marriage, that's really none of your business. I don't care what he's telling you. Because he was trying to turn the neighbors against my family.
Well,
they had lived there, and we were kin to those people. And he was trying to turn the family against me and my savior, because I had somewhere to go.
And it's like Mary
Um,
said, they become victims too, right, Mary?
Yep. They switch so quickly
mhm.
because if they don't have you to abuse, then they become the victim and get sympathy that way.
Yeah, the roles become reversed. You become the abuser, they become the victim. Well, Mama, why did you leave Daddy? Oh, well, honey,
How do you
I could.
explain that without being bad about the other parent?
There you
Because
go.
that's one of the things that nowadays the courts will tell you you can't do.
In my case, I would not talk about their father. I allowed my children to draw their own conclusions, and they did.
Mhm.
And I gave them the freedom to love their father because he was their father, and in his own stupid way, he loved them, but he loved them with conditions, which is not really love. However, had I kept tearing him down and pulling at the fabric of
They
that
would have turned on
tapestry,
you.
exactly, and we would not have the relationship we have.
Mm-mm.
So they were allowed to make their own decisions as they grew up. We cannot use our children as weapons in any relationship that we have. Because
They
when
are
you do,
innocent.
they're innocent. Give them that freedom to make, and it's a choice. Give them that freedom to make that choice. And Mary can tell you firsthand with your kids, right, Mary?
Absolutely. When when I knocked on Aaron's door the next morning, I said, "Just want to let you know I'm moving out." He goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "Not really sure yet, but I'm leaving your dad." He goes, "I'm coming too, unless you don't want me, because I am not staying in this house with that man without you here as a buffer." 19 years old. And I thought, wow, I didn't even realize.
And children see more than we think they see. We don't give our children enough credit, even the little ones. We don't give them enough credit for being smart enough to notice things. We think we're hiding things from them, and we're not.
You
If a
can't.
They
if
feel the tension in the house. Therefore, they are tense, anxiety, uptight. It creates a PTSD type of thing in them because of the anxiety of what's going to happen between my parents tonight when I go home. I really wish they would just get divorced, go their separate ways, and
be
even if
done.
that puts me in the middle because I am tired of the fighting, I am tired of this, I'm tired of that. And so they find ways to stay out of the house as much as possible if the controlling parent will let them. They'll go to friend's house, they'll go here, they'll go whatever just to get away from it.
And they also become, some of them become bullies themselves
Yes,
to
or
other children.
and a lot of them in my growing up years, the parent that was being abused is the one they started looking down on. They didn't want anything to do with them because they weren't strong enough to protect me.
Yeah.
So when it came to me realizing I had turned out to be mirroring a lot of things, and then I had my children and could not properly care for them because of my own issues from the domestic violence and everything, medical issues, whatever. Their medical, my medical. And my mom got guardianship custody of them. Everybody's like, I don't see how you could do that. Well, I was toxic. At that particular point in my life, I was toxic to my children. The only thing I could think of to help them was remove me. I was the problem. If I could get away, heal me a little bit, but still have interactions with them and start healing the way that I needed to and rewiring my brain to not be like that, then they were better off because they were safe from that toxicity or from being found because somebody found me and being hurt as a byproduct. Is that the best way to deal with it? Probably not. But it's how I felt was best to deal with it for my children. Do we
And the
have a
thing is,
relationship now? Yes. I've made it a point to stay in their lives. Is it perfect? No. Do we have estrangement issues? Yes. That's okay. I accept those. It was either I accepted that before I signed paperwork.
well,
I
the thing
had
is,
to.
you kept the children within the family unit.
I did. I
They did
did keep
not
them
go to
from going.
strangers.
No, I gave them to a loving home where they would have freedom to romp, run, grow up the same way that I did in the same kind of loving environment. Do I say it's perfect the way that I grew up? No. I have a very opinionated shows me daddy. We have more messages, ladies.
We have three.
Where?
I'm not sure, but my thing's up here chatting, or it says chat 3, but I'm only
I
seeing the
only,
one.
I only see the one.
Yeah, but I
I
have a
think
3 out beside it. I don't
I,
know. It's
I,
goofy.
I see the three.
Okay.
Somebody said, Bonnie,
Hey, Bonnie.
Hey, Bonnie.
took me a minute to find her. She said, I did the same, Yvonne. I didn't talk about their dad.
Even with my
Sometimes it's,
children, they would ask about why daddy doesn't call. I'm like, I don't know. Why doesn't daddy come and see me? I don't know. Does daddy not love me? Well, my experience is that your dad loves you, but I don't know why he's not doing all this. Maybe it hurts him too much because he has to communicate through me, or I don't know. He also worked nights and made it a lot harder. He was in the food industry. Um, but I never actually said, no, your dad doesn't love you. No, your dad's just ignoring you because, well, whatever. I did know that their dad cared about them. And it's not their fault that we broke up. It was never their fault. Um, that particular relationship was the rebound from and healing experience. No other
And
way
this
to really put it. I love their dad. Don't get me wrong. He just wasn't the one that I was supposed to be with, and I knew it beforehand.
and this is what gets dropped in the cracks of the end of relationships is when it gets so toxic that the children are now used as weapons.
Mm-hmm.
That is a form of abuse, whether it's from the ex-wife, the ex-husband. That is a form of abuse to the children because you're using your children as weapons. Okay, well, if you don't come pick them up this weekend, then you don't get to see them. Or if you don't pay your child support this week, then you can't have them. Or if you don't have them home by 6 o'clock, you can't have them.
Court
Ladies and
order
gentlemen,
says.
yeah, that is wrong. We are human. Never use your children as a weapon in an adult relationship. They are the byproduct of that relationship. They're not the reason you broke up. They're not the reason that you couldn't live together. When you allow those children to be children with both parents, regardless of what happens between the two of you, those children are better well-rounded. Right, Mary?
oh, absolutely. And you don't want to let the child be a substitute for your former spouse either.
Exactly.
And I know too many people who do that. They don't want to remarry, but they use their child as a sounding board and they use their child as their best friend.
My
And
mother,
it's your mother.
I was her best friend. I was her sounding board growing up.
That's hard for a child.
Yeah.
because it forces that child to be a
To grow up.
responsible adult when they're not mature emotionally, mentally, physically, or spiritually to handle adult decisions. It's not fair to that child. So understand,
Bonnie
Bonnie,
just said, I put up and shut up for far too long before we divorced.
Yep.
I think I think that's the case with almost every woman.
I stopped responding to the stupidity that he was throwing out um, in the same ways. Like, I didn't fight with him anymore about it. I just said, okay, whatever, and kept going with my plan in my head and never let on to him that's what I was doing. Um,
so we've touched on a number of of things, and hopefully we have put out some very good stepping stones for people in these kinds of relationships. Now, I'm going to flip the page for just a minute. While we're saying that the children don't deserve the pull and turn and twist of two adults in a relationship, on the flip side of that, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to tell you, a child is a child. The adult is the parent. The child does not tell that parent what to do. That is another form of abuse. If they get away with it once, they'll get away with it twice. That becomes a pattern. And as that parent ages, and that child becomes that bully and that abuser, and that parent has to become dependent on that child to take care of them, it doesn't end well. So remember this. If you don't have structure and you don't have rules, and you stop saying, oh, they're just a child, they didn't mean it. No, stop now. Cut it off. There are boundaries, and those children should never cross them. My children will tell you they have a healthy fear of me, as they should.
I did of my mother till the day she died.
Because I'm the parent. I don't care how old that child is. I'm the parent. Sure, they're free to make their own decisions. They're out on their own. But I'm still the parent. I will always be the parent. So when I have a 5-year-old kid throwing a fit in a grocery store because they can't have their way, I'm going to pick that child up, take them outside. We're going to have a conversation.
well, you're doing better than I am because I'm going to whoop their butt, honey, with my little hand.
And we're not going to say, oh, well, if you'll be quiet, I'll buy you this when we leave. No.
No, it's if you don't be quiet, you ain't getting nothing in this store.
So understand, you're the parent. They're not. You are teaching them an acceptable way of behavior, which becomes an entitlement. So they get on social media and they start their stupidity, or they go and demand a job, or they go and demand this, or they go and demand that because they're entitled to it. No, they are not. So stop being that parent. Be a parent. You're not their friend. You're the parent. They're the child. You teach them a acceptable behavior in societal norms, and it's not entitlement.
There's a time to be their best friend and a time to be their parent.
It's not your parking spot because you parked there for the last week. That does not have your name on it. It does not say Susie Q's parking spot. Nobody else is allowed. You be the parent. You teach them boundaries. You teach them respect for themselves, respect for you as an adult, respect for you as a parent, respect for authority. Because I'm going to tell you what, those same children wind up behind bars.
Because they have no respect for authority.
And authority is authority. Whether it's there is authority within a family relationship. Our highest authority is God.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get out in the real world, children, I'm going to tell you something. The real world doesn't care. They don't care that you think you're entitled. They don't care that you think that the world owes you a living. They don't. You teach your children a work ethic. And you don't start at the top and work your way down either.
No. And
No, you start at the bottom and work your way up. That way you know every job from the bottom up when you get to management.
And you teach
And
them
know what
that
you're talking about.
every job has a value.
Exactly.
You can't go around with children who think, well, that job is beneath me.
I've done many jobs in my life, and every job taught me a lesson. I am no better than the janitor that cleans the buildings at night, because I had a cleaning service. And I'm no better than the CEO of a company.
Because you got
I'm
your
not
own.
beneath it. I'm not beneath that CEO. They both get treated with the same respect because I want that respect. So all these young parents that think little Johnny's so cute because he's pitching a fit, oh, well, you know, he has ADHD or he's...
So do I.
Let me tell you what, I have a brother that's mentally challenged that would throw fits because he didn't know how to talk. Well, guess what? When he learned how to talk, the fits stopped. And when my mother understood that the brain is a muscle and you have to teach it, he didn't get away with stuff. And this was in the 50s. When you don't accept bad behavior does not repeat itself.
Exactly.
I used to hear, well, he's got ADHD in regards to my child. And I turned around and I said, and he still got rules to follow.
Exactly.
And he's going to follow.
And every child is teachable. I don't care what you label them. Every child is teachable. And when you excuse bad behavior, it produces bad behavior. Oh, well, he's got ADHD. That's why he beats up on his wife. No, that's not acceptable behavior.
No, that's
No.
just because he's got meanness inside of him coming out.
He's
That's
got
what my nanny said.
He's got ADD. That's why he's a bully in school. No, that is not acceptable behavior.
No, that's
Oh,
because y'all putting too many people in the school classrooms and the teachers don't have enough time for one-on-one to explain to him exactly how he needs to do, or because he's bored giving something else to do. ADD, we get bored.
He's got a learning disability. That's why he acts up in school. That is not acceptable behavior. And when parents make excuses for their children, that is lazy parenting. Well, you know, I work 12 hours a day. My husband works. We're tired when we get home. Okay, so make the choice not to have children.
My mama worked cleaning house, come home, cooked dinner, cleaned our house, and worked in the garden and still took care of me.
So stop making excuses for your bad behavior and your poor parenting because you're too cotton picking lazy to give your children boundaries. Yes, it's easy to cave.
Time management.
It's so easy to cave. But I guarantee you when little Johnny gets out there in the big bad world, they'll say, there's the door, hit it.
Yep.
I got fired because I was sick on Tuesday and I had a hangnail and I got fired. Bad company. No. Put your ass in the car.
Employee.
Exactly. Right, Mary?
Right. 1,000% right.
If you ain't contagious, go to work.
Exactly. So that's the opposite side of what happens when there are no boundaries.
And just because you've been in a DV situation and you've gotten out does not mean you cannot improve your life from where you are when you leave. Just because you might need to be on assistance right now doesn't mean you need it all the way through your child's life.
Exactly.
And if you don't need it, let it go so somebody else can afford to go get their child a machine for an asthma attack.
Or if you need it and you're working,
That's different.
you're contributing to
Right.
what you're getting back. Don't apologize for it because you were working. You're contributing to that. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not a gift.
Society.
It's assistance. You're contributing to that assistance because you're putting back in what you're taking out. So, but if you're just living off of it because it's generational and you're teaching your children to live off of it and they're teaching their children and you're having 15 gazillion kids because you're too lazy to go to work, I'm sorry.
Mm-mm.
I worked 3 jobs when my kids were little. 3 jobs.
Right after my first divorce, I was working 2 part-time jobs because that's all I could get. And both were fast food.
And there's nothing wrong with that because we
There's
got
not.
to.
I didn't have littles at the time, but even through when I had my first baby that stayed with me, um, I was working as a waitress, making $2.13 an hour, and they still make that.
I made 65 cents an hour.
Well, I understand that was like in the
The dark
dinosaur age. Um, I'm only from the monkeys, okay?
So, Mary, I see your wheels turning. What are you thinking?
No, I'm just absorbing. I'm really just absorbing everything. Because what you're saying, you know, you and I stay in each other's heads all the time.
Which is frightening.
They
It's
don't
dark
make
and scary.
parents like they used to.
Mm-mm.
Bonnie just sent a message. Same here, 3 jobs and still raised 2 awesome kids. I was fortunate, I guess, that my kids were basically adults when I got out.
You
Um,
were very lucky in that sense. It's so
so
hard
amazing
today.
because I wonder sometimes how they would have fared had I had them more to myself at a younger age. You never know. There is no right time to leave. There's no right way to walk out of a relationship. There's no good way to say goodbye or just to, to change directions. I mean, had I moved out with small children, I definitely would have wanted child support. But I had gotten to the point where I didn't want a thing from that man. Not a thing. And enough time has passed that I think any damage I did by leaving them as adults, leaving him while my children were young adults, it has its own kind of trauma.
And there was going to be
Like,
trauma, whether they were small or older. How
yep,
much
yep,
trauma? Well, God decides when we leave, in all honesty, because He is the one that
absolutely.
usually provides the path to get us there. So the experiences that they had helped to shape who they have become today. Without them, they wouldn't be the people they are. Aaron might not have wrote a book.
There you go.
That's true.
But the day that
Wow.
you decided to leave, you showed them something that even though we've dealt with it all this time, it's not something we have to deal with anymore. I
Right.
am strong enough to give you that now. Um, my aunt was married for 54 years to the same man. Had issues with said uncle my entire life because of the way he treated her and his child. Um, it's how that's another part of the generational because he learned it from his
His
father.
parents.
His father. Well, his mama too. She liked to use a broom handle. But she had 5 boys. How else was she supposed to keep them in line? Uh, Back in that era, that's what they did. It, as we were talking, it was acceptable at that time to do that. Um,
No bigger than her thumb.
it was a broom handle. Um, But he, my grandfather was in the war. When he came home, on both sides of my family, my grandfather was in the war. When they came home, they were so mentally, they had seen so many things during the war. It mentally warped them. But
Yeah.
growing up, they had also seen the abuse in whatever forms. Both of them would drink and get mean. One made a choice to change when he married his next wife. That's on mama's side. He chose to become a better person and got married again, and I never saw that side of him. The other one, because whatever he saw, whatever happened in his life, and he had abusive parents, according to my dad. I don't know. My grandfather did. Um, I never got to meet him. I never got to meet that grandmother. Um, but the story goes that he was mean, and she chased him out of the house with a broom in one hand and a frying pan in the other, and told him he was not welcome back as long as he was drinking so much and being mean and all of that. So my understanding is that they found him in a ditch with a bottle in his hand before he was laid to rest. I don't know. That was before my time, way before my time. I wasn't even thought of at that time. So it is possible for an abuser to change, but they have to want to.
Absolutely.
They have to actually be putting the work in. Um, and at that, I still wouldn't stay because whatever caused it to be that way in the relationship isn't going away.
It does not.
The trust that was broken is going to be harder to heal. Now,
Yes.
if you separate and you both heal and you come back together, that's up. I mean, that's different. That's a different place in a relationship. But especially if children are concerned, they're not going to want to go back into that type of thing, even when they say that they think they do. It's because it's what they've known. They're missing the parent. As a child of divorced parents, the back and forth can be a lot to handle. But it's better, in my opinion, for me, it was better for my mama and my daddy to go their separate ways and not argue all the time. That builds anxiety in a child. It doesn't matter their age. Um, you just have to. Afterwards is harder. You have to relearn everything. You have to learn your own strength. Um, if you have children, you have all the court battles back and forth, and they can linger the child's entire life. Some people never get rid of their abuser because of that. Not totally. Um, I can walk away, never had anything to do with them, but the children are gonna be required to go and see them by the courts without sufficient evidence to keep them from having to.
Yeah.
And for a lot of women, the aftermath of it is scarier than living in what they're in. The court may decide to take my children even after I leave. And that's true, they could. I don't necessarily agree with it if you're trying to do better, but it's based on the kids' health, the kids' needs.
And, and Gwendolyn, hold that thought for a minute because that brings up another point that I think you both will agree with, and that is while all this is taking place, the person who's being abused can feel like they are on an island alone, because everywhere they're turning, instead of resources and help, they're getting angst, aggravation, and threats from the very people that are supposed to be helping them come together to heal, to make a different chapter in their life. But you have threats from the courts, you have threats from DFACs, you have threats from family members, you have threats from friends, you have, oh, why did you do this? You're made to feel even more guilty that it's your fault when it isn't, because you don't have a support group wanting to help you move forward. You have people pulling you apart in all different directions. Am I right, ladies?
Yes.
You are 100% right.
Don't walk
And
into a courtroom without a domestic violence advocate. If you can't afford a lawyer, you take an advocate. They can't sit at the table with you, but you'll have moral support. You will have a support system if you have nobody else. I had to do that.
What were you going to say, Mary?
a message from Bonnie.
Yeah.
Goes back a few minutes. I never went for assistance, not even from my family. We made it. And we do. Whether we use assistance temporarily or for the rest of our lives, or if we just strike out on our own, the minute, this is just like Yvonne says with our books. The minute you submit your book, you are a success.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute that you make your mind up to walk out of an abusive situation,
You've already succeeded
successful.
because
Yeah.
you have broken the hold that they had that was keeping you there, making you think that you had no other choices. You always have a choice.
And back to what Gwendolyn just said, any one of the three of us qualify as experts for domestic violence advocates. Any one of the three of us could go sit in a courtroom with a victim and be that support group because we have lived it.
Yep.
And we
Courtrooms, but yeah, technically we could.
Yeah, we could, because we know that journey, and we know that when you're sitting in that courtroom and you're surrounded by unfamiliar, 99% of the population doesn't even know what a courtroom looks like, much less what goes on in a courtroom and how intimidating it can be. I mean, you've got this person sitting up above you like God on high in this black robe, and then you've got these two attorneys fighting back and forth like school children, and then
Bailiff.
and the bailiff, and you've got all of these witnesses being paraded up on the witness stand. And let me tell you something about the law, ladies and gentlemen. The law can be used for either the defense or the prosecutor, because the law can become interpretation. The same law can be used for the defense side as well as the prosecution side. It depends on how they twist it and on case law behind it that set the precedent. So yeah, you can feel intimidated in a courtroom, and then you feel like you're very, very small in this huge room with all of these people that are smarter than you. Let me tell you something. You're just as smart as they are, and more ways smarter, because you've lived it.
You lived it and have to navigate your way out of it, and that makes you smarter than they are.
Exactly.
Oh, yes.
What were you going to say, Mary?
But exactly what Gwendolyn said. These people in the courtroom didn't have to escape.
Right.
They didn't have to plot and plan and scheme and worry and wonder. That takes a lot of skill and
Courage
and just intellect.
And ladies and gentlemen, courage is doing the thing that is right when you're scared to death. That is courage.
Then I am one of the most courageous people you'll ever meet.
There you go.
Yeah,
I
because
have
I
been
see.
scared to death for every step of my life.
So understand this. Is it going to change overnight? No, it will not. Your relationship in that marriage and that relationship did not change overnight. Getting out of that environment will not change your life overnight. But like a very wise man who was also my history teacher wrote in my high school yearbook, and I live it to this day, you make your past experiences a guidepost, not a hitching post. Because when you make them a hitching post, you bring them forward to the present. There's not a damn thing you can do about what happened in the past.
Nope.
It is the past. You cannot go back there and rework it. You cannot go back there and have redos.
You
There's
already
no
made those choices. Now you got to live with them.
There's no mulligans in the past. All you can do is move forward with a different attitude, a different environment, a different strength, a more self-confidence, self-esteem, self-respect, and the ability to know that you're going to be okay. And what happened back there is not who you are. It defined a moment, but it did not define who you are. And those people in your life that keep trying to bring it forward, that keep trying to throw things in your face, that keep trying to use those triggers to set you off, that is not a you problem. That is a them problem. So you move yourself from that. Am I right, girls?
You're definitely right. And what other people think about you,
The only person who matters is God and yourself.
Exactly. That's a them problem.
Everybody else that you allow to contribute to what you think of yourself, as far as like their opinion of you, it's up to you to accept what they say or reject.
well, you know what my grandmother used to say about opinions?
They're like buttholes. Everybody's got one and they all stink. Yeah, my daddy
They're
says that too, but it's not
and they're
quite
only
that
good
way.
to the person they're only good to the one who has it.
Exactly. And
You
ladies
can't
and gentlemen,
use yours and you can't use mine.
opinions are opinions. They're not fact. Your character is a fact.
Mm-hmm.
People's opinion of your reputation is speculation. It is what they think of who they think you are. Let me reiterate that. It is someone else's thinking of who they think you are. It is not your character. Your character comes from within. So when you allow other people's opinion to build your character, then you're cheating yourself out of who you really are.
Yep.
There's a line that says, those that don't matter, I don't mind.
Mind over matter. It don't matter, so I don't mind.
There you go.
I don't
With
mind, so it don't matter.
those people out there that think I'm the worst thing since sliced bread, that's their problem, not a me problem.
Well, some
I
days
will look-
I'm sure you can be.
Well, that's true, but I'm also
Depends
cute.
on who riles you.
Well, but that's who I am, see? That's part of my character, but I'm also cute.
Yeah.
I am loyal, I am loving, I am very
A myriad.
I'm protective,
Very.
but I can also be the meanest thing that ever walked. I don't like her. She's not nice. I hold her in check. I admit to that. That's one of my flaws, but that's okay. I know that about me. But that
I think
doesn't.
that might be something that as domestic survivors, we have had to acquire that extra meanness.
That layer. It's a
Yeah.
layer of protection.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna, most of the time, people get the, I don't want to say rude, but it can be, but it's more the blunt side of me. from the
Well,
get go these days versus
I don't have time to be gentle with people that are stupid.
I don't tolerate stupid. Y'all know how I feel about stupid people. And
duct
ladies
tape
and
can't
gentlemen,
fix them.
if if you if you want my response about a question, if you want my advice or my opinion, my first question back to you is, are you ready for the answer?
Can you
Because
handle the truth?
you might not like the answer. So be prepared. Unless you really want the answer to the question, don't ask the question, because I will answer it. And I don't sugarcoat it. I'm not mean, but I don't sugarcoat it. If somebody out here is cutting a fool and just doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result, and they come to me and
That's
they say,
insanity.
what am I doing wrong? I'm going to look at them and say, are you stupid?
Are you insane?
Because you keep repeating the same pattern of behavior and expecting a different result. What's the problem? Is it what you're doing, or is it you? When my grandson calls me up and says, Nana, I'm fixing to send my son up to Tennessee for Christmas, and my response to him is, okay, go ahead, you're grown, make that decision. But when it goes sideways, don't call Nana, because my number's not open to you anymore, because you know the end result. So don't be calling Nana, because I'm not going to solve this problem, because you know better. When my other grandson in a restaurant, most boys want to take on their dads because they're getting big, they're getting strong, they going to take on dad, they're going to show their manhood. Mine want to take me on. So when you're sitting in a restaurant and your grandson, who's almost 6 feet tall and built like a brick house, says, Nana, I can take you on. And your daughter's sitting there and she's going, Cherokee, you might want to rethink that. And he goes, oh no, I can take Nana on. She's old. And I'm saying, Cherokee, honey,
That means she's wise and got more years experience.
you might want to rethink your decision. Oh no, Nana, I can take you. I push my chair back and Brandy goes, I'm out of here. I go to stand up and Cherokee goes, oh, never mind, Nana. No.
How old is he?
He was 18 when he did that.
Explains it.
Old enough to know better.
Yeah.
Well, enough to know better, still too young to care.
But Gwendolyn will tell you, she's known me long enough. Don't back down, because I have boundaries in my children's lives, in my grandchildren's lives, in my
And
friends'
she ain't got to say nothing. She just got to give you that look. There is a look. Through the haze, the fog, the everything, I see that look. And I'm like, what did I do?
The fewer words she speaks, the stronger she is. I will never forget the day I was spiraling out of control at lunch, and she just put her hand on the table quietly. She said, Mary, just stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what? Because I was enjoying my spiral.
Yeah, I was enjoying the spiral about my book too, and she said, just do it.
Because, when you're spiraling out of control, you're your own victim and your own hero at the same time.
Yep.
You tell everybody how busy you are and how many ideas you've got and how you're going to conquer them one at a time and you'll figure it out.
And then she sends 3 books in to get published at a time.
Excuse me, it was 6.
I was just talking about the last batch, okay?
But ladies and gentlemen, I did not yell at her.
No, you were
No.
so calm. You were so quiet.
Right, Bonnie?
Just stop. Bonnie said, my kids always said, I give them the look and they'd back down. One day, I don't even know what we were talking about. My husband and I were having a conversation, and I gave him the look, and he said, put your finger down, and my hands were like behind my back or whatever. I said, I'm not pointing my finger at you. He said, you might as well have been. The look said it all.
Put that pointer look away.
Yeah.
But this is what we were talking about. You have to have boundaries, and I'm going to tell you what: the louder that one talks to another person, the less they hear,
Oh, yeah.
because it becomes white noise. So what you have to train yourself to do is speak very, very quietly. And the more quiet you speak, the more that person leans in, because they might miss something that you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I don't scream and yell. And Randy will tell you, my daughter will tell you, if my mom is at a whisper,
Run or pay attention. Or pay
F,
attention and then run.
F5 tornado's coming. Because when I am at a whisper and the look, yeah, because I don't have to yell. Number one, I'm too old, I'm too tired, and it takes too much energy.
It takes too much breath.
And I don't have that. I'm not going to waste what few years I've got left burning it up, screaming and yelling, because it produces no results.
Nothing but stress.
Even that little great granddaughter, all I have to do is give her the look. She's learned. So we have been on here almost 2.5 hours, ladies. I know Mary's getting tired. I see it in her face. We could probably talk for another 3 hours, but we
Mary's
will.
getting hungry.
Uh, she getting hungry. So
Me.
and her too. So what we will do is we will close today's podcast. We hope that it has been beneficial to anyone out there, whether you're a victim, have been a victim, are now surviving, have young children, and you're going, I don't know what to do. Create boundaries. Just create. The Bible says, discipline your children and they will love you when you are old. You have to create, even God disciplines us
Yeah.
every day. So create boundaries. Don't make excuses for bad behavior. I don't care if they're challenged or not. My brother was never supposed to be anything but a vegetable.
Well,
That's
look
what,
at him now.
yeah, look at him now. So understand, everybody can be taught. It is up to you, the teacher, to create boundaries, discipline, and life's lessons. When you fail at that and your child winds up behind bars, or your child winds up knocking you in the head with a hammer, that is on you, not that child. Yes, they have to pay the consequences of their stupid actions, but that is the product of not creating boundaries. And I am a firm believer in discipline and creating boundaries.
That phone call from the jail cell.
Yeah, even my grown children don't cross boundaries.
But I
And
told them before it happened, you better take care of it or this is going to happen. And I ain't bailing you out because, one, I ain't got bail money.
and that's what I told mine. You get yourself in that situation, then there's consequences. Make any decision you want to. I don't care. It's your decision. It's your choice, and there are choices. But when you make those choices, there are consequences. So don't do anything today that you're not willing to wake up with and deal with tomorrow.
My
Mary,
daddy always,
go ahead, Gwen.
my daddy always told me that if I made a choice or a decision today, I better be prepared to be able to sleep with it tonight. Because if I couldn't sleep at night from the choice that I made, then it was the wrong choice. If I thought I
Exactly.
wasn't going to be able to sleep with the choice I made, don't make that choice.
Mary, your final thoughts.
My final thoughts go back to Bonnie, who's reiterating she's the same way about speaking quietly. Be very much afraid. I think this has been a very beneficial show for me. I hope that it was beneficial for anybody else who tunes in. I love that we have such a big audience because we can reach people around the world who might be suffering. And I would encourage everybody to buy Debra Gaskill's book, Gwendolyn's book, my books, Yvonne's books, whether they're about domestic violence or not. I know, and Bonnie's books too. I know that we're all excellent creative writers, and Yvonne's a really, really good true crimes writer because I can't read her stuff.
Yeah, I can't read her stuff. I can't read her true crime.
They're in your face for sure. They are in your face.
I tried to
Next
read
week,
one once. I
which
triggered
one?
and couldn't do it anymore. I don't remember what it was. It's one of the early ones. It wasn't Dreamcatcher though.
Was it was it the true crimes?
It was one of, I think so. It was one of those.
Silent Scream, Justice for Cindy, or Last Rites?
One of those three, but I'm not sure which. I can't pull the title out of my head. It's not.
That's all right. Justice for Cindy was a domestic violence
It might
crime
have been
that
that
happened
one.
in Oregon, and he shot her in the back of the head while she slept with her gun, dismembered her body, put her body parts in potato sacks, and tossed her in the Columbia River, and only got 15 years, got out, molested his granddaughter who was 13 and her cousin.
Oh,
It might have been that. It might have been that one. I don't know. I was still in the healing process though.
So yeah, my true crimes are not
Like
sanitized
I
at
said,
all.
I triggered from it, and that one is really close to my friend that I worked with, and her husband came in and unalived her and her new boyfriend after they were divorced. Everything, he was stalking her. The police couldn't stop it, but that's around the time I got my warrant for aggravated stalking for my
So
ex.
at some point we'll have a show about true crimes. But next week we will have Andrea Dean Van Scoik on the show, and we have just released her new book, The Gate Beyond, The Rise of the Young Warrior Astrid Story, which is her first venture into Viking fiction. And the cover of that book apparently has been the talk of the world.
Love that. That was the one that's got her in, that you took her picture and added her to the cover. That's
Correct.
awesome.
then you did the same thing with her tea party by the grave.
Midnight Tea in the Graveyard. I did the same thing with that one. Because as my authors grow, I get to grow and evolve and do different things with their covers. I am not limited to the covers that I can create until one of the authors tries to put handcuffs and shackles on me, and then we have a conversation. But that's another story for another
Oh
day.
yeah. Well,
Send her
go
the
by
symbols you
real
want
quick.
on it, and she will make you the perfect cover. I promise. That's all I do. I tell her what symbolism I think needs to be on it, and then she comes up with everything, and it's all good.
So
I've even quit doing that. I
Well,
just
it
give her the book.
depends. Now, with God's timing, I could see a cover or the beginnings of a cover in my own mind. So I put those little things like, I'm seeing this, and that's what she did with the cover.
Bonnie, this is my new duck, y'all.
Okay.
Maybe I'll do that. There we go. Bonnie said those covers and shorts are incredible.
They are.
and the program I use to do your shorts with now gives me up to 15 seconds.
Nice.
So that extra 5 seconds is a lot in the advertising business, folks. Yes, ma'am.
My video yesterday for early release has already had 100 views.
Nice. Very nice. And I put it up on Instagram, the website, Riverside, YouTube, all the other places that I put it up. It's up there all everywhere now. So join us next Are we going to do next Tuesday workshop on the Chicago style of writing?
Yes.
At
Yes,
1 o'clock. Join us here on Tuesday at 1 o'clock. We will be doing a workshop on the Chicago style of writing, which is the only style of writing that we allow here because it saves me so much work.
Next week gonna be busy.
It is going to be busy.
2 birthdays and 2 shows.
So until next week, we will see you all later. Thank you for tuning in. Share this podcast. Subscribe to allthingsbooksandpublishing.riverside.com. That is our website for all the podcasts. It's where I put the shorts up. That's where I put the little clips up from the shows. It's where the shows go up to begin with. And we will see you all next week. Thank you. One more minute.
To say happy birthday to both of my babies. I have one on Monday and then one on the 16th.
Nice.
Both of my babies have birthdays next week. So happy birthday, boys. Mama loves you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, boys. And with that, we will close.
Hey,
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Bonnie.
Bye. Love
Bye,
y'all.
Bonnie.
Please. How do I get out of here?